Hello everyone and welcome to another Mage video. In this video I'm going to do something a little bit different than the usual. Instead of focusing on some element of Arcane Mage in patch 8.3, I'm going to talk a little bit about Infinite Stars. I've acquired a few pieces and I did some testing on the the training dummy here, and came up with some interesting results. As a caveat before going any further in this video, I don't think any of the following is very viable in a raid encounter, because the ticking damage you take and the damage you take in an environment is going to proc many things from beyond. And in the current build, we're at about 135 corruption. So you are looking at about 60% reduction in healing and 60% more damage taken, all of which would never be viable either in a progression raid scenario or probably even just goofing around and looking for raid. But one thing I found is that if we put together a couple pieces of Infinite Stars, and here I have two pieces of rank 2 on 470 and 445 gear, one piece of rank 3, and then we also have a piece of rank 1. All of these will stack their damage together into each event. So every single Infinite Star will be putting together the numbers from all of these into each of its event as a baseline. And then it obviously stacks in damage by 25% as you go. So in other words, the more pieces of Infinite Star that you add to this, the more your baseline damage, and therefore the more your threshold. And so what I've been looking at in the last little while is what helps to increase the Infinite Star procs, or what lowers the occurrence difference between one Infinite Stars and the next. And if you look at Shadow Priests and DH Demon Hunters in Nyalotha right now, they're the two classes that take best advantage of Infinite Stars, because either due to their haste, or it's not totally clear whether it's the haste or it's the occurrences of damage, so eye beams and void stuff, if these things are what actually makes it proc. So I did some testing over here with all three specs, just kind of these really weird builds that tried to maximize haste. I think actually the Arcane build was more of just a straight up single target with normal traits. But all of these were sort of attempting to game the system and get as much out of your Infinite Stars as possible. So we had, with Arcane, you still have in a single target scenario a huge amount of damage coming from Infinite Stars. Usually when I play Arcane, the next closest spell is within the 5 percentile, maybe 6 percentile. You can see even here, Touch of the Magi, due to the damage from Infinite Stars, actually did far more than it usually does. So Touch of the Magi is a talent for Arcane that basically procs, and you can do extra damage as you hit your enemy with blasts, and then the window ends and the Touch of the Magi proc goes off. So it's a very minor portion of your damage, but here, due to Infinite Stars, it's actually been increased. Infinite Stars had about 11 hits. I think this was about a 5-minute test dummy run. And of course, Arcane Blast, as you might expect in a normal single target rotation, is going to do the lion's share of the work, hitting upwards of 350,000 per tick during your burst window. So actually, given we had so much corruption on and this is not viable, this is kind of what you might expect out of single target for Arcane over the course of 5 minutes with this kind of build. And this includes trying to dodge a whole bunch of things while achieving it. So not crazy. Not crazy as far as what you're used to seeing with DHs and Shadow Priests, but still significant for Arcane. And then with Fire, I'll skip Frost and come back in a minute. With Fire, we had a build that we put together that tried as much as possible to emphasize haste. So we were running meticulous schemings and blood rites to try to get those procs. And you can see the astronomical power of Infinite Stars when you don't have to deal with all of the consequences of it, like the crazy things from beyond and huge pools and getting basically frozen in place. Infinite Stars is doing 50% of our damage, which is insane. Now, I'm running, and more than that, it's hit about 27 times in a 5-minute window. We're doing about 70k damage with an exceedingly poor setup. So, for instance, you'll see I'm running Phoenix of Flames, which people never run in single target, basically. We're running Mirror Images, which again, we would never run because we want Rune of Power to stack with our damage. But essentially I'm running everything that has nothing to do with fire's damage per se, but potentially gives us other instances and procs. So yeah, that was fire, and fire 2 was running all over the place. I'm scorching and running, trying to get to different locations because of these big pools that you'll see in a minute. Still, massive amounts of damage from infinite stars. And then Frost, a similar story. This is the interesting thing about this is I think I did about 6.5 or 7 minutes. How much was this? Yes, about 7 minutes worth in this fire demo, and the Frost one was 4 minutes. So think about this. In 4 minutes, we had 20 procs with Frost, and in 7 minutes, we had 27 procs. So 3 whole minutes extra time that Frost could have, and in, what do we have in this one? It was about 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, we had 11 procs. So Arcane was the worst at trying to induce infinite stars, and Frost was the best. And the reason for that, which I'm going to show you right now, is that Frost's major cooldown, Icy Veins, gives us 30% haste. Our haste right now with this setup is around 27%. We're going to take advantage of an Ignition Mage's Fuse. And all I'm doing in my talents setup is trying my best to either choose things that would induce occurrences of damage, like Comet Storm, things that allow me to maintain the Icy Veins buff, so getting as many Fingers of Frost procs and shooting those off to extend the buff. Thermal Void, Vision of Perfection, all of these pieces are the attempt to prolong a large amount of haste. So right now I'm going to give a go here, and what I'll try to do is get the details running on this pull, Lust, and then show you how Infinite Stars comes up on the screen over here with our tracker, and just give it a roll, and you can see the craziness that is this corruption. We're going to use Blizzard a lot too, just to induce damage as well. Here we go. So we're trying again to extend as much as possible. We'll just take that one off in the opener. Icy Veins, by getting as many procs, Blizzard's going to reduce the cooldown on our Arcane Orb. We're going to have to take that this one, unfortunately. You can see how much it's proccing. So we're in 65k land, and this is just the beginning. Now we're going to start to see, I think, Infinite Stars really come up in the damage. Again, a lot of this is actually mobile, which is a little bit unusual for Frost. Of course, Arcane is probably the least mobile in some respects, but Frost still has its immobile moments. We still have about 12 seconds, and we have no procs yet of Vision of Perfection, so we're doing pretty good for keeping up our Icy Veins. And look at, guys, just look at Infinite Stars taking off on the meters there. Oops, too much haste. And it's going to start to go crazy. We're pulling about 70k DPS. Most of it is going to be Infinite Stars. I think we probably reached our threshold as far as hitting 10 stacks, just judging by the amount of damage that's gone out. And now, when we get our next round of Icy Veins, you'll see it just skyrockets and goes through the moon. Anyways, you can see here, guys, this is the basic setup for trying to get as much haste as you can. I kept my character sheet open just so you could see where we're at as far as haste. This is the lowest we've gone, is at about 30%. And when we get meticulous scheming, when we get all these other pieces, we have an opportunity to get it upwards of 100%. I think with Lust, I'll have to go back and look at the video, but we were probably in the 130 percentile. And it's in that condition that we seem to get more procs, or we at least lower the occurrences, so that the cooldown happens right away in the RPPM of Infinite Stars. Might die here. Please don't die. Oof, almost. Again, we're not inducing a thing from beyond because the amount of damage that we sustain is fairly limited. We're only getting hit by our little orb. So, yeah, we're probably going to die here. Block. We'll just block. It's fine. And part of the reason it's fine is Infinite Stars is carrying our damage by a lot. Again, 100% haste is going to improve this. As the fight goes on, you can see my damage is just going way, way up with Infinite Stars. Get rid of that for now. Let's just move this over and see what we can see. While we continue, we have 14 occurrences so far. And we've been going for about 3.5 minutes. I guess if it is based on individual damage, all the icicles, all the blizzard ticks, all the frozen orb ticks, these are things that are going to induce. There goes another one. Our Infinite Stars. I just don't know exactly. I need to find more data. I found some stuff that talked a little bit about occurrences that have been mapped out using the sims, but it wasn't clear whether it was haste based or because the procs from damage situations that may have occurred for a DH or a Shadow Priest. The point of this video, though, is mostly to show that you can aim at a build which really seeks to go crazy on haste and therefore get... Oh, here comes the thing. I'm dead. Oh, we managed to get out of the way. Whew. We did it, boys. It looks like haste procs also seem to proc our corruption, the bad stuff that is, a lot more. But you can see just how crazy, how much out of hand it gets once it stacks it up really fast. That's mostly the benefit of running a high haste build, is not so much that you get 20 occurrences, but that you get it really early on in the fight. So like Mott, maybe, Wrathion, who knows. The point, this is obviously never viable in a raid, but I just think it's so crazy. 70+% haste for like half the fight, and we get this amount of damage. So we hit 22 stacks. Let's leave it there. That's probably about average or a little bit less than average. Some of these, again, guys hitting for 800,000 damage when they crit. Again, we don't really care too much about the specific damage of the frost abilities. We're just looking to see how much we could do with Infinite Stars. I'll have to do a few more tests with different builds and maybe the fire build and the Flames of Alacrity, see if we can get that going. And any other way to make fire produce more haste. But there you have it, guys. Hope you enjoy. See you next time.